You're listening to your favorite podcast about Flesh and Blood and its community. Welcome to Last Ditch Effort.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Last Ditch Effort podcast. In this week's episode, we'll talk about mostly heavy hitter spoilers and how we believe the limited set will work out, the interactions between the different mechanics and different heroes, and we'll quickly go over what has been spoiled so far and give our thoughts about it. So, welcome back, Maurice. How's it going?
It's going good. Sorry for the little break that we had to take. We both were pretty busy the last 2 weeks, but with a little bit delay, we're coming back stronger than ever.
Stronger than ever, yeah. That's also probably what the people from from the Manor podcast thought, right?
Yeah.
After both being in the finals of the last battle, it was a battle hard, no, yeah, on Bravo and on Bolton.
Yeah.
Now they're back too, and we're back stronger than ever too. So
even without being in the finals.
Yeah. In next battle hard, we didn't play, right? Otherwise,
next battle
we would
hard.
have been in the
That's
finals.
true. It's true.
Battle Hardened Switzerland or something like this. So it's been a bit quiet, and I think like the full spoiler season will start probably right when this podcast airs.
Yeah.
So I think on the 15th of January, 16th of January, there are way more spoilers coming up. But I think we already have quite the number of cards, and all the heroes have been spoiled too, for us to make a few guesses about how we believe the limited will form out, and what a few ideas about some of the heroes that we already have and things that we have seen. We have to say that I didn't test much with the new heroes at all yet. Actually, I didn't test anything with the new heroes. The only new quote-unquote hero I tested around with is New Prism with like the third Luminaris, which I've been liking a lot.
Yeah.
But
I think
with the
it's
new heroes,
still,
I haven't been brewing much.
I think it's still too early to test with the new heroes anyways, because we don't have the full context of how the set is going to look like. So I feel
and
like...
especially if you take, for example, KO, right?
Yeah.
And you build your KO deck with what has been spoiled so far, and with the older KO cards, I think the KO specialization in this set has not even been revealed yet at the time we are recording this podcast. So I don't know, maybe there is some wild KO specialization that makes you want to roll even more dice. Then your KO deck will look quite different than just a Reiner in disguise with one arm, for example. So I think for CC, it's very hard to tell how these heroes will play out and how they will shake up the metagame, especially because there is so much context and so much information still missing. Having said that, I still believe that they all feel somewhat powerful. So they all have very unique abilities, and I think they're potentially all very good heroes to pick up.
Yeah, I mean, most of the Majestics haven't even been spoiled yet. And as we know, in CC, Majestics are usually the ones with the heavy impact, right?
The heavy hitters.
Yeah, the heavy hitters are usually at Majestics.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, let's go over some of the heroes, and let's start with Brute.
Let me read KO for you all.
Yep.
So KO is a 4 intellect brute hero with 20 life. Well, in young form. It says you have one weapon zone. You may only have one-handed weapon or offhand equipped. Attack action cards you own get +1 attack while they are in any zone other than the combat chain. And the first time you discard a card with 6 or more attack during your action phase, create a might token. So what do you think is the most interesting part about this card? There's a lot going on. There's
a lot going on. You said mostly most of the important things. So he has 4 intellect, 20 life. The adult 40, right? But
Yeah.
he only has 1 arm. And yeah, I'm the first thing when I saw this was like, what happened to his arm? And the second was like, okay, this would be a very, very crazy ability if he would have 2 claws, I believe. And I think this is the reason why they only gave him or them 1 weapon zone, that you can't do like crazy blood rush things similar to Reinar
Yeah.
with 2 claws. And it's also the first time, I believe, that we see that you only have 1 weapon zone, where you can wear an offhand without a one-handed weapon equipped.
Yeah.
Because usually how offhands work is you can equip them if you have a one-handed weapon equipped. So for example, you cannot run double arcane lantern or something like this. But KO could run 1 arcane lantern or a steel braid buckler. Is that the generic shield? Is there
I
a
think so, yeah.
generic shield? Yeah. Um, so you can play KO with that. So yeah.
I personally believe they specifically did this to get around the Blood Rush Bellow question, because I think they wanted to avoid every brute just playing like Blood Rush Claw Claw.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Levia does it, Reinhardt does it. If KO would have also done it, like I feel like it would have gotten a little bit stale.
Yeah. But I've seen some pictures on Twitter already where people do very degenerate stuff with KO,
Yeah.
with Blood Rush Bellows. So you don't really need
Yeah,
to
yeah.
have,
I think
to have the second claw.
Blood Rush Bellow will still be a good card in KO. I'm just like I feel like if you have a different play pattern with Blood Rush Bellow, that's already enough to make it more interesting than just like another like safe option of Blood Rush Claw Claw, right?
Yeah. That's I completely agree. And yeah, the first thing that I thought when I saw that card was just like Berserk.
Yeah.
Because like, and I think we've seen Berserk buyouts, right, already, and the price of Berserk increasing, which is a card that cares about sixes being discarded. And I think this is like an obvious thing to do in Classic Constructed, but in Heavy Hitters Limited, I'm still wondering like how powerful KO can be, because there there are quite some cards spoiled already that are 5 power, 5 power 3 block brute attacks, right? For example, we have here on rare the yellow Rawhide Rumble, which would be a 6 power, but the you don't have Blood Rush Bellow. Maybe it will be in the set, but I doubt that it will be in the set. But you care about the power of things in your deck with things like Clash, for example.
Yeah.
So, and everything in your deck has 1 power more. So if you play the same deck with KO and with another hero, the KO will most likely win more of your clashes, because the deck has +1 power. Basically, the deck has 1 plus power.
Yeah.
And
I
that
think
is,
it also is going to make draft more interesting, because I feel like what happened, especially if you think back to Welcome to Wraith, where Rhinar really cared about 6 power attacks, was that if you had more than 1 Rhinar, you would really have to fight for all of these 6 power reds, usually, sometimes the 6 power yellows. But here, I think if you have a Rhinar and a KO, the fight is going to be a little less intense, because KO can easily play these 5 power attacks and they're still decent, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
still
it's
trigger
true,
all of
because
your
you still
your
get
hero
your
ability.
might token for your hero ability. But still, I believe that, so if with the information that we have now, right, if I were a KO and I knew there would be a Rhinar or there most likely a Rhinar in the pod, I would still take the 6+ power attacks,
Yeah.
because Rhinar wants them.
No, of course.
I win
think,
more clashes,
yeah.
and then you sort of starve the Rhinar of sixes. So I think if I would go into a draft right now with the very limited information that we have, right, I would most likely almost never play Rhinar at this stage, because I would be afraid that the KO is taking my brute cards. And if you can't really intimidate too much with Reinhardt, then it gets very tricky. But also, it seems like drafting weapons actively in this limited environment could become something that will happen, right? I've seen people already theory craft like, oh, what happens if I draft, I don't know, 8 weapons or whatnot.
Yeah.
And
So
so I
let's
think this is something
so
we need to consider. Yeah.
to get it out of the way, let's talk about the other brute real quick. It's good old reliable Reinhardt. You know him, you love him. It's the same text as it was in Welcome to Wraith. So whenever you discard a card with 6 or more power during your action phase, intimidate for intellect, 20 health.
Yeah. So Reiner intimidates. And I think that's the problem some people, I will not say who, really dislike Reiner in Blitz, because if you get your hand intimidated away and Reiner has a big power turn, you're just dead. And it feels like, to me, intimidate feels like a mechanic I as an opponent do not have much game into. I don't have much leverage, right? It's a random card from my hand that I can't block with. Okay, I can swing back on offense next turn, but if all 4 cards get intimidated, then I'm a little bit in trouble.
Yeah.
But of
I
course,
feel like
this is like a blitz thing where
Exactly,
you play
yeah.
all the power cards. You
In
include
constructed, I can see that argument a little bit. Although I also disagree with that to a certain point because it just forces you into a different game plan. I mean, in Blitz, it's a little bit extreme because you can get killed on like turn 0 or turn 1 fairly easily by Reinhardt. Like, it happens more than you would think. But in Classic Constructed, it just forces you into a different game plan, which I kind of like. Like, if you're a Guardian that's super defensive, like, you cannot run this strategy into a Brute or into a Reinhardt specifically. And I kind of like that. I kind of like when there's heroes that kind of disable a route to victory for another hero, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think, I mean, we yet have to see things that have go again that successfully discard 6s a lot. Of course, there is this one card that you can choose to discard cards from your hand to prevent damage. That is an instant. The name
you're
of
talking
the
about
card
No
is No
Fear.
Fear. Yeah. But then, of course, you
Let me read that real quick.
it banishes. It's not even a discard.
It said No Fear.
It's a banish.
It's a red 0-cost brute instant, and it says as an additional cost to play this, banish any number of cards with 6 or more power from your hand. At the beginning of your end phase, return them to your hand. The next time you will be dealt damage this turn, prevent X of that damage, where X is 2 plus the number of cards banished this way to play this. So it sounds a little complicated, but ideally you play this from Arsenal, for example, and then you banish like your entire hand. They're all 6 or more attack cards, and then you take 6 less damage this turn. And it only goes to the next time you'll be dealt damage. So it's kind of like you play this, you put away your hand, and you say, you know what, I'm not going to block any of your other attacks. I'll take a little bit less from your next attack this turn, and then send everything you got, and I will come back with everything I got next turn, because you get them back at the end of his turn.
Yeah, it's sort of
a
free Oasis Respite that is not a loss of tempo if you play against a wizard, potentially.
Against wizard, this card is really good.
For one spell, I'm still not 100% sure if this is, if you want this, or rather just have a blue and AB3 if you play against wizard, but that's something different. So this does not work with intimidate. Yeah, that was a mishap on my point.
No, it doesn't discard. It just banishes. But it's like kind of I think the idea is like you play this, you put away your hand, and you're just like, all right, give me everything you got. I will come at you back with everything I got, and we'll see who's the bigger bully.
Yeah. But coming back to this intimidate thing, it seems like getting the intimidate trigger with Reinhardt, so discarding a 6 power, is becoming less random in this set. So I think they replaced most of these cards that say, as an additional cost, discard a random whatever, with a new keyword that says beat chest, which says, as an additional cost to play this, you may discard a card with 6 or more power. If you play KO, because the cards are in your hand, they have +1, you can discard a 5 power. And then those cards have an effect if you have beaten chest.
Yeah.
So, for example, this Rawhide Rumble that I mentioned before has this beat chest text, 6 power, 2 cost attack, 3 block. And then if this attacks, if you have beaten chest, intimidate. So this would be a way to double intimidate, basically.
So if you're Rhinar, you play a red Rawhide Rumble, you decide to beat chest, then you get an intimidate trigger from Rhinar and an intimidate trigger from Rawhide Rumble, right?
Exactly, yes. And similar to the Rhinar specialization, Show No Mercy, that's a 6 power, 3 cost, 3 block. That says, when this attacks a hero, intimidate them without the need to discard, right?
Yeah.
So this is strictly better than Rawhide Rumble, which makes sense. It's a majestic. And then it says, if the defending hero has no cards in hand, this gets +3. So what you would want to do, I mean, we still have to see go again on any attack or effects that give attacks go again. But if you, for example, have a quicken token or
an agility token
an agility token, yeah, because this is, I think, so far the only way we have seen to give attacks go again currently, with the current amount of cards that are spoiled. So you pitch a blue, you attack with Rawhide Rumble with an agility token, and you discard a 6 power. So you intimidate 2 cards and you attack for 6 go again, and then you pitch a second blue and attack with Show No Mercy from Arsenal or something like this, intimidating the third card, and then if they block, then it gets +3. If they don't block, like, it's a lose-lose situation for them, right?
Yeah.
If they don't block, they have the card in hand. Okay, cool. So I think those are very, very powerful things that can overcome what you said earlier, like these potentially very defensive guardian plays that want to just turtle up and defend. And I think this is cool because, like, this forces you, if you play against a Rhinar, to block the things you can and stay at a very, very high life total. So this in a way forces you to have good blocking habits against brutes that have a lot of evasion. And I think this is not too bad. What I'm afraid of is that it can potentially become non-interactive. But that, from the cards that we've seen so far, for the limited environment, I'm not very afraid of. I think it feels not broken.
I mean, if we think back to Welcome to Wraith a little bit, which was the last time we've had like a generic brute draftable hero, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think it ever felt incredibly oppressive to play against brutes that intimidate you. But it did give you way more. I think it was harder to play against them because you never really knew what you had to block that turn. Like, if you got 2 of your cards intimidated, maybe the cards that you had to block with were not are not the cards you want to block with, right? So then you have to decide if it's even worth it to block or if you're just going to try to race them. I always kind of enjoyed it. I thought Welcome to Wraith was an amazing draft format. We will see if this turns out like the same way. Like, maybe let's say your hand, and you're playing like a warrior, and your hand consists of a card that gives your weapon go again, and then Rhinar intimidates 2 of your cards, and all of a sudden you have to decide if you want to take 6 damage or if you want to block with the card that gave your weapon go again, and only take 3, for example.
Yeah, but it comes with a downside, right? Because as Rhinar, except for your specialization, beating chest costs you a card, and it costs you a card from your deck. And we've seen this is a set so far with with many high power attack values on cards. So getting getting fatigued in like a bright lights context where everything that is 4 power or below is very hard to play because of breakpoints and blocking is so efficient. Here, I think it you still attack for 6 or for 7, and
Yeah.
it costs you 2 cards, which a hero with weapon can potentially still try to fatigue you. And the intimidate mechanic is probably something to also counter that in a way a little bit better, or give you leverage if you set up a very strong second cycle to really overpower their defenses when maybe armor is low and things like this.
Yeah, I think the overall like feel of heavy hitters is going to be very different from bright lights. I think we can already see some of that just in the cards that have been spoiled so far. There's no like there. First of all, I think there's not going to be any items. Safe to say.
Yeah.
Um, and while like bright lights felt very combo heavy, like you had to have like a combination of cards to even make any deck work, except for Max maybe. But even there, um, some of the cards were clearly like dependent. This just feels like, you know, back to basics, flesh and blood, draft good cards, draft like, you know, I think still exist, like you said, with Show No Mercy, for example, and an agility token. But in general, I think it's going to be very good to come with, like, you know, play 2 card 7s, for example, and just block with 2, play a 2 card 7, and do this for 10 turns in a row, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and we have to see yet, we have to open the packs, right? And we have to see the distribution of the
Yeah.
cards, right? It will probably be something like 2 2 2 or something like this, and then you have some rares and some minor variants, but I expect there to be not less than 2 brute cards, warrior cards, and
Yeah.
guardian cards per
Kind
pack.
of how we saw
And
with
reading,
Outsiders, huh?
yes,
Yeah.
and reading signals I think will be a bit more important. But let's talk about the bigger picture a bit later. So yeah, those are mostly the brute cards that have been spoiled. There is also this Bonebreaker Bellow, which also has the beat chest text. It's just an action, so not an attack. 3 block attack still. At common with 1 cost, and they come in red, yellow, blue. And they say your next brute attack this turn gets +3, and if you have beaten chest this turn, instead it gains +5. And both values go down. So it's not it's +3 instead +5 for the red one. The yellow one is +2 or +4, and the blue one is +1 or +3. This is just a buff, basically a buff that is also an intimidate outlet for Reinar, and that lets you discard a 5+ power card with KO. That could potentially net you a might token. So both heroes seem to care about this beat chest and discarding 6s a lot, which makes sense, right? Brutes are 6 power cares class already for a long time. And I think this, yeah, we'll see probably more of those cards. There's one more brute action that is spoiled. That is Smashback Alehorn. It's a 2 block, 0 cost blue that says create an agility and a might token, go again. And this shows us, oh, brutes, they do care about agility and about might. And that makes sense, right? For the agility for the go again to go a bit wider, and the might for hitting breakpoints and just getting more damage through. And I think this is very cool. This is there's probably a cycle of these types of cards for all 3 classes. And yeah, I think this shows us what you want to be doing as a brute in limited. And I think it's good. We'll see how the play patterns shape out with the rest of the cards, but I think it will still reward setting up a very strong second cycle with the right cards at the right spots to overcome the defenses of your opponents. That's what I believe brute to be shape out like.
So let's move on to the Guardians in this set.
Yes.
The first one I want to talk about is Betsy. She is a 4 intellect, 20 health hero that says whenever an attack you control wagers, you may pay 2 resources. If you do, the attack gains +1 power and overpower.
I think that's a very powerful mechanic. It sort of falls into this realm of reminds you of OG Bravo paying 2 to give something dominate, right? At just whenever you want to. But this is only if you wager, and then it doesn't get dominate, but it gets overpower. But you can do this multiple times, right? It's whenever an attack you control wagers. So it's not a once per turn effect. And I think this is where this can potentially be stronger than Bravo in a go wide sense. We have to see how wide you can go with very expensive cards that you want, or with cards that do wager. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting mechanic, and probably for me, this is between the two Guardian heroes that we have, probably the more offensive or aggressive one. Offensive is the wrong word, but the more where you want to go into offense and you want to attack and you want to wager.
I mean, with
But yeah,
these, as we saw in Bright Lights already, it is very hard to block overpower cards in Limited, unless you specifically have like block cards in your deck specifically against overpower, and you need to
mhm.
have them in your hand when it happens because you cannot arsenal them.
Yeah, and
Um,
there are block cards in the set, so
there are.
that I think is very cool. For example, when I drafted Bright Lights from early on, I valued block cards very high, probably higher than the entire table, and it won me so many games. And I feel like I will be in a very similar spot in this set, picking like 4 block cards over something that is potentially doing a lot of damage, because I just like playing defensively in a limited
Yeah.
set.
But then you
But
have to consider, like, while the block cards are going to be good against Betsy and similar overpower effect, they are very much not good against Intimidate, for example. Because if your block card gets intimidated and then it's
oh
your turn and you have
no.
a hand with 2 block cards, you're going to be kicking yourself.
Oh, that's a nightmare. Yeah, but maybe it's good to mention the Betsy specialization that we already have to put this hero into like a little bit of more context. So, the Betsy specialization is Bet Big, which is an 8 power, 4 cost, 3 block. That says when this attacks a hero, you may wager a gold, might, and vigor token. So it's really betting big, right? And so let's say you have 2 blues in hand, you play bet big, you wager all, you have to wager all 3. If you wager, you have to
Yeah,
wager
you
all
have to
3.
wager all or nothing, right?
Exactly. So yeah, you pitch 2 blues, you have 2 floating, you attack, you wager, and then because you wager, you can give it overpower and +1. So you attack for 9, which means they have to have 2 blocks and an attack, or potentially 3 blocks in hand to block this, which is quite, I would assume, quite unlikely. Maybe there are very good equipment blocks. We yet have to see that, but that is most likely a hit, right? And if you hit, you get a gold token, a might token, and a vigor token. You do not get an agility, so this go wide aspect that we have seen, this theme around the brutes, we do not really have that in the Betsy Guardian decks from the bet pick. There's a little bit of lack of this go again, but it's still like you need 3 cards to do that in your hand, and 2 of them have to be blue. But it's like it's 3 very relevant on it, and yeah, it's crazy. I think this is so powerful for a limited card. I feel like this is when back in the day when we played Magic the Gathering drafts and you opened like a nice planeswalker, pick one, and you build your deck around this. I feel like this can potentially
Backbid
be something like
is a
this.
bomb.
Like, I think Bad Pick is feels like such a powerful card to me because of the synergy with Betsy's hero ability. Um, yeah, if you play against a Reinar, you get two cards intimidating out, and then suddenly you have to block with this to not die. Then it's very tough, and that's why I think Flesh and Blood Limited is far superior to Magic the Gathering Limited. But that's a whole nother story. But I like the card. I like the design of the hero. Yeah, it's cool. I think it's very, very cool. Also, the art is super cool with like this, I don't know, demon dog dragon kind of thing. Just looks cool.
The art in
Yeah,
this entire set is just absolutely amazing. Even all the hero art, I think, is so cool.
yeah, yeah. I think so
Yeah.
too. I think they've done a great job. Yeah.
So
Do you want to
let's
talk about the other hero?
yes, let me read the other Guardian hero here. That's Victor Goldmane. He has 4 intellect as well, 20 health, and it says the first time each turn you create a gold token from an effect you control, draw a card. And then the first time each turn you would fail to win a clash, instead you may destroy a gold you control. If you do, put one of the revealed cards on the bottom of its owner's deck, then clash again.
Yep. So again, as a reminder, Clash is one of the mechanics in this set. So wager is if something hits. It's basically, yeah, if it hits, you get an effect. Clash is if is it also an on hit? I believe yes, right?
No, clashes. Whenever you clash, you both reveal the top card of your deck, and whichever one is higher wins the clash.
Ah, right. So it's not restricted to on hits. It's just like clash, and then you clash, and then the higher the number at the bottom left. It's sort of like betting, right?
Yeah.
Ideally, if you're second cycle and you can remember your deck well, you are rewarded. And I think this is something that I could see happening with a Victor deck, that you want to only clash when you know you will win the clash. Also, I believe I think it's very interesting that it says the first time each turn you create a gold token from an effect that you control.
Yeah.
So that means there are quite a few effects, or potentially quite a few effects, that generate gold to others. This includes clashing, I believe. So
I
if
mean, I think
someone
it's
else
just if
would
you,
clash a
yeah,
gold with you,
yeah,
or
if you
wager a
wager,
gold
yeah,
with
yeah,
you,
if you
yeah,
wager,
yeah, then you would get a gold and you would draw a card, and that would be so cool for a defensive guardian if you would be rewarded by blocking out for drawing a card. So I think that is what they wanted to prevent from happening. That's why
yeah, I feel like that's too
the first,
powerful. Yeah.
yeah, that maybe it was there in
Uh huh.
playtesting, and they felt they needed a restriction.
That it does kind of like look like this, if you ask me. Like, just I feel like they meant to do that originally and then realized it was too strong because
Yeah,
you effectively
potentially,
have a 5 card hand to block with, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
you get the gold.
Yeah, it's true. And the cool thing is like you then you could spend the gold to clash again with the second
Yeah.
part. Like I think this sounds like almost too powerful. But I really like the effect, right? This is not really the wager hero like Betsy. This is more the clash hero. So I feel like they're most likely to be a little bit more on the defensive side. And you can spend everything, all the gold you get from clashing effects, or from stopping wagering effects, to improve your clashes first cycle. So you can sync the card from your opponent potentially, or your own, which is cool because it's for you. It's a pseudo opt effect. It helps you to get to second cycle faster, if that's what you're looking for, or reach sec faster. And you can also mess up your opponent's deck. So I think this is a very, like when this hero got spoiled, I was to be honest, that's the one I'm most excited for in heavy hitters. I don't know
I
why.
figured you would be.
Yeah.
It does everything you love.
And it's not because, like, I've seen some debate on Twitter, on X, where people were arguing that this Victor Goldmane is just not a very nice person. And we've seen the hero name, right? Victor Goldmane on the That All You Got.
Oh, and the flavor text, right? Yeah.
In the flavor text. The flavor text
Yeah.
to remind everyone of That All You Got is, if only they were all as pathetic as you, Victor Goldman. And like going back, a friend after the spoiler, a friend, you Patrick,
Yeah.
he sent me the picture of That All You Got, and it's like, yeah, I know. Somehow I know this guy, and somehow I like the guy already because I really like the flavor text of in That All You Got, and I read some stories on Twitter of people that are like. They played this at a tournament, and then they said, "Oh, if only they were all as pathetic as you." And then they were like, "What did you just say?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm just reading the flavor text." Like, yeah, it's a thin line to walk, but yeah, I think it's a very cool design, and he looks like a villain.
Oh, he
You can
does.
say
He looks like one of these like
he is
arrogant
just
knights.
yeah. Also, I've seen some people post like, "Ha ha ha! Just daddy's money will bail him out."
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
and
I think that's such a flavor win. The fact that you
yeah,
can pay gold to get out of a tricky situation. It's
I
just so good.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
let's read some of the cards that go well with him.
yeah,
First
let's
of
start with the
all,
specialization
I'll
here.
start with the specialization. It's called the Golden Sun. It's a yellow 4 cost, 7 attack, 3 block, Guardian attack action, Victor specialization. And it says, as an additional cost to play this, you may destroy a gold you control. If you do, this gets +3 overpower. And when you win a clash revealing this, create a gold token. So
Yeah,
this means if you clash with someone and the Golden Sun is on top, you just get a gold token. Victor immediately triggers, you draw a card, so you draw into the Golden Sun because that was on top, right?
yes, and yeah. So ideally, yeah, exactly. That ideally you have as many copies of the Golden Sun in your Victor deck as possible.
Exactly. And it's not a legendary specialization, so you can play 3 of these.
Yeah, I mean, if you manage to draft 10 of these,
Yeah, you can play.
can play 10 of these.
Of course, yeah.
But then it will be very
But
suspicious.
in constructed, I mean.
Yeah, but for limited, that's exactly what you want to be doing, right? So you reveal it, then you draw an additional card. Your opponent knows, oh, next turn you might pitch this, right, to get this effect again and again, or there is a 10 overpower potentially coming.
And it's so smooth, right? Like so you clash, you reveal the Golden Sun, you make a gold, you draw the Golden Sun, and then in your next turn you can play it. You can immediately destroy the gold that it got created by the Golden Sun. It would be a 10 overpower attack, and most likely you will even have 2 floating. So this is absolutely pummelable. So
if they put pummel in this limited set, then I don't know what I'm gonna do.
I would almost bet. I would bet a lot that pummel is going to be in this set. I think.
Oh, you think so?
Yes,
you
absolutely.
So?
I think pummel will be in this set.
But then, if pummel is in this set, Razor Reflex has to be in the set too.
For the Warriors, I think we'll talk a little bit about the Warriors soon. But I think for them, it's going to be a very interesting card.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, let's see. That's a hot take I haven't heard yet.
Oh, I honestly, like, reading through the set, I almost assumed that pummel was going to be in the set. Just, like, by reading the cards. It's going to be such a nice, like, yeah. It's going to be, like, almost playable for any class, right?
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, it's true. But maybe they print an attack reaction similar to pummel and Razor Reflex that has something like a clash type text or something.
I could
like
also
this.
see that they print like a worse version of pummel, since it's kind of like we saw in Bright Lights with 0 to 50 instead of 0 to 60 or something, because like pummel is such a good card that maybe they think it would be too good in like limited. But honestly, I feel like if you get hit by pummel and have to discard a single card, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, that is true.
Wow.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see. I mean, there are hammers also in the
They're
set, right?
hammers. I think there's
There are
even a
clubs.
club, right?
Yeah,
So
I think so.
I just almost assumed that Pummel was going to be in
Okay,
this.
you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Getting pummeled by Bet Big. Good
Oh
night.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, brutal.
Cool. Yeah. So there's another a weapon that also fits this clash type mechanic that Victor Goldmane High and Mighty, the adult hero, want in this limited format. Do you want to tell us more about the Miller's Grindstone?
Yeah, let me read that real quick. So it's a 4 power guardian weapon hammer. It's one-handed, and it says once per turn action, pay 3 attack. When this hits a hero, clash with them. If you win, destroy the top card of their deck. If they win, put a -1 counter on this.
Yeah.
So just at base value, having a 3 mana attack hammer that attacks for 4 is very good. We've seen this in the past with other guardians, right? Like having something that you pay 3 and attacks for 4. Like this is why, not the only reason, but part of why Oldhim was so strong.
Yeah, and it does have a relevant text box, right? It's not just a blank 4 power hammer. But yeah, if you win the clash, like, and this is what I mean with it, you're being rewarded if you know your deck. So blind attacking with Miller's Grindstone, if you have a lot of blocks in your deck, is not what you want to be doing, right?
Yeah.
So just drafting all block cards in a
Well,
Victor deck where you play this can become quite tough.
yeah. Also
Except
notable.
if you have a lot of gold and
Yeah.
you lose your clash and you can sink the card and you know that you're probably likely to have a big attack on top after
Yeah.
that. Because you
Also
don't want
notable
to make
though
your
is
hammer
that
worse.
also notable is that this is a rare. So this is not a token card that you can just put in your deck whenever you want to. You have to draft this.
Yes, you do have to draft this, but we've seen a couple of weapons already that are not tokens, right? So we have the at rare. Oh no, that is the only rare weapon that has been spoiled so far. Are the others all tokens? I don't think so. Are there some cards missing on the February side? I believe there are. Because there recently
Yeah.
has been the spoiler of more heavy hitter weapons. Let me quickly pull this up somewhere if I find it. Where was that? Was it
There
on
it
the
is. I
official?
found it. Yeah.
Yeah, you found it?
Yeah. It's very hard to read these.
But they are
But
rares, no?
yeah, not all of them. There's 5 of them are rares, and 1 of them is a common.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
the common hammer here is a guardian weapon hammer. I can't really tell if it's 1 or 2-handed, but it looks one-handed. And it says once per turn action 3 attack, like pay 3 attack. If you've drawn a card this turn, this gets +1, and it attacks for 3 usually. So
yeah,
it attacks for 3. Sometimes it will attack for 4.
yeah.
That I'm
So
assuming that will be the go-to like regular guardian.
the default hammer, yeah. But having seen this, like this grindstone hammer, really suggests to me, and seeing the other rare weapons really suggests that that you are likely to see a few potentially per draft pot of these weapons, and picking them up can be very good into certain strategies, right? If you run, for example, Miller's Grindstone into a deck that does not have many attack actions, like Warrior, I think it can be very rewarding. And then on top of that, it's a breakpoint that also mills them 1 or destroys a card from their deck. So you overcome this potential of a warrior deck to try to maybe fatigue you, block you out, whatever, by proactively destroying or threatening to destroy cards from their deck. And I think this is very cool. It's just, of course, you can also run this with Betsy, right? But seeing this hybrid drafting of, like, in addition to what we've had earlier sets where you have to draft cards and you have to draft equipment, now adding like a few slightly more powerful weapons than your token weapons that you can run either way in the draft really is a great idea, I think. And you can draft an arsenal of different weapons to adjust to different opponents,
It's going to
but you
be
still
really
want enough
interesting
cards
to
in deck.
see. It's going to be really interesting to see how relevant or how highly you will end up picking these weapons, because I think it's going to be way more of a choice of which matchup do I bring what weapon into. So I think the Miller's Grindstone, like if you are Victor and you have this Grindstone, I don't think you want to play it against KO or against Betsy, because I think the chances that you lose the clash are pretty high.
Yeah, yeah, I
Just
think so too.
because
I think so
they
too.
naturally want to play high power attack. But yeah, if you play against the Warriors, for example, that traditionally have had either no attack actions at all, or if they have attack actions, like low powered ones, like Bolton, for example, and you can almost guarantee that you win the clash, this becomes a very good weapon.
Yeah, and yeah, in limited, I think this is like the you're very sad if you run Kasai to see this at your opponent's weapon slot.
Yeah.
Probably Olympia the same. So yeah,
So
this
that,
is like one of the part that we've seen for Guardian, right? Is
yeah.
this wager clash? Um,
Also
let's
interesting to
call it.
note is the card that has been spoiled called Pint of Strong and Stout. That's a blue 0 cost 2 block that says create a might and a vigor token, go again. So it's
Yeah,
the same in the cycle as Smashback Alehorn that creates 2 tokens and has go again. But for Guardian, it will be might and vigor. So
yeah.
whereas for Brute, it was agility and might.
That's true. That's true. But I kind of dislike where they're going with this because it suggests that you get mighty and vigorous if you drink a pint of strong stout. um, uh, but yeah, that is just. Uh,
In your experience, that's not the case.
let's not talk about that. I think it has been a very long time since I had a strong beer. So yeah, but that yeah, let's move on, but let's stay in Guardian real quick because there is this other, let's call it, sub theme that is part of the Guardian suite in heavy hitters, and those are the auras. They are back, the Guardian auras, and the dream of having a cool aura Guardian deck lives on. I tried it a lot in the past with like Nerves of Steel, Stamp Authority, and things like this. Maybe we get some new cool tools. So far, we have seen like the bigger than big and the stacked in your favor Guardian actions auras. And stacked in your favor is a 2-block aura. The red one, so they all cost 2. They come in a rainbow, and the red one says, go again. Your attack action cards get +3 while defending. And at the start of your turn, destroy this, draw a card, then put a card from your hand on top of your deck. So this is a way to ensure you have a high power card on top of your deck with Clash for Victor, for example. So this is something to ensure this. So it synergizes well also with the with the Grindstone. This is at rare. And while this is in the arena, so for one turn cycle, all your attacks block for 3 more. So this is potentially something to block out critical on hits and things that have overpower, things like this. So this the other ones, the yellow one just gives the +2 buff to defense, and the blue one gets a +1 buff to defense. So now, for example, your 3 defense attacks with the red one just they become like almost unmovable type of cards where you just block 6 with 1 card, which is amazing. And you get to draw a card when this is destroyed, so you're potentially not even down the card. Of course, you have to you have to play this a turn earlier. So how I would see this Victor deck with only the very limited information is like it's a 2 turn cycle type of deck where you have one setup turn, one where you're very defensive, and one a turn where you attack and where you want to clash, where you want to make gold and things like this.
Yeah, I think Victor is going to be a very like tough hero to balance because like you want these type of like stacked in your favor effects with that like buff your like that you can play in your off turns and that buff your on turns. However, you don't want too many of these because the clashes will be harder and harder to win the more of these zero attacks you have. Like every non-attack you have is a lost clash potentially, right? So you still will want a good amount of just high power attack actions.
Yeah. So this is like the defensive aura that's stacked in your favor. We've also seen at common the bigger than that, which is a 2 block. So bigger than big, sorry, even bigger than that. Bet big, like my brain. Bigger than big. It's a 2 block guardian action aura, 3 cost, also in rainbow, and the red one says, at the start of your turn, destroy this. So similar to the other aura. And then your next guardian attack this turn gets +5. And when this attacks, you may wager a might token with them. So this is super cool because, again, this is something that lets you wager. And if you wager, you can give it overpower.
With Betsy,
yeah, with Betsy. And it gives you the +5. So really, and then you will, if you win the wager, so if it hits, then you get the my token for next turn. Yeah. So this is a lot of value on one card.
I feel like this is going to be a disgusting card in Betsy, especially because, and it gets, if you pay the 2 of her ability plus, it gets +1 from her ability as well. So you can put that, it comes in for +6 overpower and with a wager on it. And then maybe even a wager on the card that you play, right?
Potentially. But also what is very relevant here, it says your next guardian attack. So it's not an attack action. And Betsy also says when an attack wagers. So this is a way with the Betsy ability to give your weapon overpower. And that is something we have not seen with Bravo. You could not give your hammer dominate with a Bravo ability.
Right.
But you can give your hammer overpower with the bigger than big and the Betsy hero ability. So this is, I think, also a very strong buff in a way to be able to make your, so let's say you have the hammer, right? So then you come for the hammer for 4 +5 from bigger than big +1 from Betsy. So that is now 10 overpower, which costs you 1 card from deck, which is
on a weapon,
which is very nice. And then you hit and you get a my token for next turn. So that's a lot of value.
Yeah.
And the yellow one just buffs for 4, the blue one buffs for 3. So I think this is very interesting, and another form of evasion for everyone who hates fatigue mirrors.
I think that covers the Guardians more or less. I think they're going to be. It's going to be very interesting to see how defensive you can build some of these decks, or how, or if like full aggression is the way to go.
Yeah, I think I will find that out very fast. Probably a pre-release when I try to build a fatigue pile, but let's see. Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the Warriors, which in my mind are the hardest to figure out in this set. Let's start with Kasai, everyone's favorite. She's back. However, this time she's a little different. She's still a 4 intellect, 20 life hero, but she says if you've drawn a card this turn, your sword attacks cost one resource less to activate. And then it says once per turn action, banish 2 red and 2 yellow cards from your graveyard. The next time a weapon attack you control hits this turn, create a gold token, go again.
Yeah, that's also a lot of text.
Yes.
And I think it's very interesting because all the all the heroes have a lot of text, and both parts of the box they interact with each other, right? Because here, if you get a gold token from the second ability, if you banish 2 red and 2 yellow cards, you get a gold token for next turn that then you can pitch a yellow for the gold token. You can draw a card. You have drawn a card, so now your swords cost less,
Yeah.
and it's like this sort of engine, right?
Yeah.
And of course, you will be wanting a lot of red and yellow cards, and maybe less blues for your second ability to be relevant. And your first ability really enables that that you don't have to spend too much resources on your sword attacks. So I think this is super cool hero design. It feels very powerful to me.
Yeah, it's gonna be. This is gonna be like the combo hero in my mind. Like if you when you're deck building and when you're drafting, you are gonna have to have a really good eye on what cards interact how with each other. Because I think drafting the correct number of yellows is it's going to be quite difficult. But yellows are going to be good in Kasai, not only because you need them in your graveyard to activate her ability, but also because a gold costs you 2 to crack, right? So if you crack a gold, you draw a card, then your attacks are free. However, if you have to pitch 2 reds to do that, it's not that much value.
I think it's a very, very cool design, and it makes deck building challenging. But still, I wouldn't mind to have a blue, because then
Yeah,
yeah,
then
you
you're
don't you
resource
don't
positive.
need to you don't need to draw a card to attack with your sabers. Like, it's a trade off, and the of course you'll always fight for the power cards, right?
Yeah.
Especially the 1 yellow card that is her specialization, which is raise an army, which is a 3 block 0 cost warrior action Kazai specialization that says, as an additional cost to play this, destroy X gold you control, and then you create X Centauri sellsword tokens. And those tokens are allies, which now Illusionist is not the only class who gets to make allies, but Kasai can now make those ally tokens. And those tokens have 2 life and the ability to, once per turn action for 1 resource, attack with go again. So no conditional go again, just go again. And it can only attack if you've attacked with a weapon this turn. So instead of giving the condition to give them go again, you give them the condition to be able to attack. And they attack for 3. So in a way, it's just it's an additional saber that you can attack with if you've already attacked with a sword or with a weapon.
Yeah,
But
it's gonna be
in Kasai, it's gonna be a sword most likely.
yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see how these cell sorts are gonna work out, because the first thing you'll notice is they do not like, opposed to the illusionist allies, they don't have phantasm. So there is no way to get rid of these except for hitting them with an attack by yourself. And everyone who's played against Spectra as Guardian knows how much of a pain this can be.
Yeah. So whenever I'm gonna play against Kasai, I will try so hard to not let them get gold tokens, because if they end up with Raisin Army and they make, I don't know, let's say 4 of those, like, they can really kill you super fast if they have ways to give your sabers or your weapons go again. And that is something that we still have to see how many ways are there to give your weapons go again. Except the agility, right? With the agility works with the weapons too. So if the first thing you do in your turn with an agility token is attack with a weapon, it will have go again. So we have to see how important those agility tokens are, and if there are other ways to give your weapons go again in a reliable manner, because that's what you always wanted with Kasai. That's also something you always wanted with Warrior, right? It's a warrior theme to just swing your swords or your weapons multiple times, and this is what you want are want to be doing here too.
Interest,
Ideally discounted. Yeah.
yeah, interesting to see is also because like you can only like agility only gives your first attack go again in the turn, right? So
Hmm.
um, I'm wondering how reliably she's going to be able to use both her swords because Centauri Saber is a one-handed weapon, so you can play two of them. Um, but I think it's going to be very difficult to swing both sabers in the same turn.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, potential scenarios are like agility, swing saber, play something, and then swing the other saber. So if you have two of these spell sword tokens, right? You have an agility, then you attack with saber, it gets go again. You attack with your allies, and then you attack with the last saber again to close the chain without go again.
That's
And
also going to
it's
be interesting to see how easy these cell swords are going to be. How easy you get them, because so far we only saw raise an army as a way to create Centauri cell swords, but I could also
yeah.
see there being other cards that create them.
Oh, you mean something like a Rig the Embers? I mean, this is basically sort of like a Rig the Embers.
Uh,
No, instead of creating an Ashwing from Ash, you pay an army with gold, which
yeah,
makes sense flavor wise. But yeah, it's hard to figure out how easy it will be to give gold to Kasai in a reliable way, and that's what I meant when I said like I will try really hard to not let things hit. If they activate their second ability, because I do not want Kasai to have gold, because that's scary. That is, yeah, that I would be very very afraid of. Um, yeah, you want to talk about the other hero?
yes. Let's talk about Olympia. It's honestly looks like one of my favorite heroes so far out of this
just
set.
just from with the text box or without the text box?
Both. I think it's so flavorful, and it's a 4 intellect, 20 health hero warrior, obviously, and it says the first time each of your attacks wins a wager, create a gold token. If I understand this correctly, it says the first time each of your attacks wins a wager, create a gold token. So if you attack with a wager attack and then another wager attack, and both of them hit, you would get 2 gold tokens, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I
Because
think
yeah,
what they want to prevent is you winning multiple wagers with
exactly.
one attack, creating multiple gold tokens, which
Yeah,
is not possible. But creating gold tokens on multiple wager attacks, that is working.
yeah. And the reason why I think this is going to be so great is because stacking these gold tokens is going to be absolutely insane. Especially if, like, let's say Kasai is not super interested in the blue cards in the set because she needs the red and the yellows for her hero ability. You're going to be able to pick up a lot of blue cards in Olympia. And blue cards with a lot of gold tokens can snowball out of hand very quickly, as we've seen from the
Ultimate pit fight.
Ultimate Pit Fight Bard abilities, right? Because like you can just in a single turn crack all of your gold. Every time you pitch a blue, you net one resource, and then you'll just be able to go off.
Yeah, yeah. This is super interesting design, and there we see this warrior theme of like making gold, utilizing the gold, and to get a little bit more information about this, I think we can have a look at the already spoiled Olympia specialization.
Yeah, it's up the ante. It's a warrior attacker action that blocks 3. It's blue and costs X. It's an Olympia specialization. It says choose X plus 1. Then it says target attack wagers an agility token with the defending hero. Target attack wagers a gold token with the defending hero. Target attack wagers a vigor token with the defending hero. And target attack gets plus Y, where Y is the number of times it has wagered.
Yeah,
So
I think
let's
this is quite powerful. So probably you will always want the bottom one, right? To buff
Yeah.
it. And then you want to wager. And just imagine you have like, you would wager all three here and you would create three gold tokens with a hero ability if it weren't restricted to only
Yeah.
one wager per, or one gold per attack that's wagered. It would be crazy.
Yeah.
I think that's probably how they balance the specialization with the hero ability.
Yeah. But
And
let's say
it's
you play up the ante on an attack that has already wagered. Um, the plus Y would still be affected by this, right? So let's say you play this
ooh,
let's
yeah.
say you play this on wage gold, for example. So then you have wagered once from the wage gold. Then you can wager 3 times from up the ante, and then the plus Y would give you +4 on the attack.
I believe this is true. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
on hit, you would get 1 gold from the wage gold, 1 gold from up the ante, then an agility and a vigor from up the ante, and another gold from Olympia winning a wager. So for
That's a lot of. We need bigger playbacks.
exactly,
that take home message.
I think this is gonna this has the potential to get out of hand very quickly.
Yeah, especially since I believe we have not seen defense reactions yet. And this is something that I believe can be very powerful because at the time you play this, you know. So if let's assume there aren't many defense reactions in the set, you know if your attack will hit most likely or not by the time you play this. So either you have to play around this as an opponent every single turn, or you just get blown out by it once. And this is tough. Like this is very tough. This is similar to they attack you with dash IO with an overpower attack, and they have have like a boom grenade on top, and there is nothing you can do about it because you can't play a defense reaction. And that is very, I think that's a very powerful effect.
Yeah.
I believe, yeah. And of course, attack reactions is something that warriors have been doing. I mean, that's
And
ever
also,
since
like,
pre-buffs,
very
attack
notable
reactions.
since we talked about it with Betsy, this says target attack. So this works on your weapons as well,
Yeah.
which is going to be absolutely brutal because even if they know that you haven't upped the ante, if you just play an attack, like an attack action, and they overblock it, you just put it in your arsenal and you're guaranteed that next turn the threat will be exactly the same because you can put it on your weapon. This is going to be disgusting, I'm telling you. And the other thing that I'm wondering is how many gold payoffs are we going to see in the set? Like, of course, gold is just like pretty decent on like by itself because of the interaction with blue cards I mentioned before. But also, like, maybe there's a payoff similar to
Cash in or something.
cash in. But like I could, yeah. I mean, we've seen raise an army, right, for Kasai. That's a gold payoff. But like I could also see there being more payoffs for having gold tokens.
Yeah, I see that too. Yeah. And yeah, in addition, we have this this warrior action to fill this cycle, right? Of drinkable poison, goblet of blood-run wine, blue 0 cost 2 block with go again that creates an agility and a vigor token for the warriors. So those are the two main tokens we've seen that warriors care about. By far the fanciest, right? Sipping the wine. The person on the artwork looks a little bit like a vampire. I was just about
to say, like, just reading the flavor text as well. The flavor text says blood, sweat, and tears of anguish, such a sanguine feast of sensation, as intoxicating as the finest blood-run wine, Countess Camilla. And if you are at all interested in the lore behind vampires, this screams vampires. And how cool would it be to see a vampire class at some point in Flesh and Blood?
Yeah, maybe together with the necromancer that we're all waiting for.
Oh,
Um,
imagine like a set themed around like dark arts or something, and you have like vampires, um,
Werewolves.
necromancer, and werewolves. Wouldn't
Yeah,
seems like a cool idea? No.
yeah, that seems very cool.
So far, it doesn't really fit into the world yet, but I could see them going there at some point.
Yeah. Good. So those are the warrior attacks, the warrior actions. We have here more attack reactions at rare. Take the upper hand. Um, that boosts an attack if you have wagered. And then we have a warrior action that is a pre-buff with a relevant wager text. So Hold'em is a 3 block, 1 cost, the red one, that says your next warrior attack gets +3, and when this attacks, you may wager a wager. So just um, an additional way to wager. And if they wager, you have to assume that they have an attack reaction, basically. So it's this dynamic that you always have with warriors. Do you block? If you block a lot. If you don't block, um, they say, okay, cool, you take some damage, pass. It's yeah, I think it's very cool. And in addition to those single class cards, we have cycles of dual class that are very similar. So you have the Brood Guardian attacks that create a Might token if you discard this. So Mighty Wind Up is the name, also in Rainbow. Then you have cards that wager that are already spoiled. So wage, we talked about wage agility, which is the Brood Warrior dual class attack. All those dual class cards so far, they seem to have only 2 block. So a significant downside if you're on the defense. And wage agility says when this attacks a hero, you may wager an agility token. The same for might with Brood Guardian. And most likely there is a wage vigor being spoiled at one point, because I assume that if we get Brood Guardian, Brood Warrior, we'll likely get the Warrior Guardian card too. And they're, yeah, that I think. Oh, they are here at the bottom. Sorry, I didn't see them. Yeah, Wage Vigor, they have there too. So again, what we've seen in sets earlier, there are cards that care about multiple classes, so you can pick them up early to stay open in your draft. But here they come with the downside of having only 2 block, which I'm always scared of picking 2 block cards. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
especially since like all of these wage mechanics are going to be in this set, so on hit effects are going to be plenty to go around. And in this time around, you were even more incentivized to block out these on hit effects because if you can block them out, you get them, right? So
yeah,
if one of these brutal attacks that we just talked about from Olympia, like with up the ante and everything, if you by some miracle can block them out, you just get like all of the tokens that he has just put cards into um, creating. So you might be able to really come back with a brutal attack of your own.
yeah, yeah,
However, what is like really notable for these play patterns is that all of the tokens, so agility, might, and vigor, go at the start of your turn. So you need to use them immediately. They're not like
a quicken, for
quicken
example. Yeah.
tokens or what's the might one, courage, for warriors. So like if you don't use them in the very next turn, they are gone.
Yeah, and I think that's very good because that prevents you from piling up, let's say, 20 my tokens and then 5 vigor tokens and then do something very degenerate. Um, I think that's a good way to balance this, and I think it's a yeah. I feel like the set design from what we've seen so far seems to be very well balanced and puts it seems to put a lot of emphasis on having this being on the offense, being on the defense aspect. At least that's how I feel like. Both can be blocking can be valuable, attacking can be valuable,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really like a turn-to-turn base of maximizing your hand.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly where you want to be in a limited format. Of course, like handle this with care, right? We haven't seen everything. We haven't played a single game of Heavy Hitters Limited yet. But to me, this it feels like this. Also, the fact that all young heroes are 20 life heroes shows that they haven't felt the need to put a health bias on one of the heroes because they felt too strong in play testing, which I think also shows that they believe that this is a very balanced set. And yeah, we have yet to see it, but I'm personally very excited to start drafting this, to play sealed with this, and because like reading signals becomes more important again, I feel like, than it was in bright lights. And you can, of course, you can stay open, but you shouldn't stay open for too long because otherwise, like all the cards the power cards are gone from your pool. Like I see this as a potentially very, very interesting limited set.
Yeah. It also does kind of give the feeling of this being like a new era of Flesh and Blood a little bit. We've seen like with Flesh and Blood 2.0, like we've seen everything that they did with like they kind of explored these different themes and formats in each draft set, right? So we've seen um kind of like the them test this out with the dual class cards and stuff and outsiders. And now this is
Mm.
like the first set where I think they like are fully committed to this being like they have now committed to every set being draftable, right? Which was not the case before.
Yep.
They have like committed to like printing dual class cards more often. They have like the block cards that we've seen for the first time in bright lights. So and this, from what I can tell, is like the first time we've kind of like settled on what Flesh and Blood might look like for the foreseeable future. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Also, this set was done designing by Bright Lights release, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're uh, and yeah, I think there is some coherency, right? And especially with what you said and comparing it to Bright Lights, and I I was a bit worried because like the way I felt Bright Lights was okay. I think it was a great limited format, but there I've heard some worries of people who said, "Oh, Bright Lights was not as well perceived by people who want to open boxes for like collectivity reasons or for like just to crack packs because." Yeah, I mean, you open a twin drive, you're happy, right? But there aren't these crazy chase cards. There is not a Warmonger's Diplomacy in there or a Codex of Frailty or legendaries that have a lot of high value. So just cracking a box of bright lights without playing limited felt mediocre for some people, and that is maybe due, or the way I interpret it is due to lack of power creep, which is a good thing, right? Don't get me wrong. I think it's good if you don't have print more and more powerful cards every set, but that is a little bit then people are less intended to buy more product and open more product because all the power cards they already have. I've seen a picture on X recently, which was like, "Oh, I have your heavy hitters CC starter pack," and it was three CNCs, three sync belows, and it just like auto include cards, right? A Crown
Yeah.
of Providence, and I mean, in a way, maybe it's true, but we haven't seen all of the cards. So, and
Yeah.
there are quite powerful cards in those cards that have been spoiled, and there are also having those heroes, especially also the brood cards. We've seen brood card prints, blue 5 power cards, right, where people didn't really use them, didn't really explore them, and suddenly they're good cards with
Yeah.
KO. And it shows like LSS is in there for like the long game. They're not just saying, oh, let's print a bunch of powerful cards, people will buy our product. They're like, yeah, we put those cards in here, and then put, maybe they will be good in 2 or 3 sets. Like, I still think Everfest was a great set. I always thought that
Yeah.
because I had so much joy opening it. I don't know why. Maybe it's the cold foil potions. I don't know. But now so many Everfest cards will potentially see more play, or have also been seeing more play recently. And I think this really shows like this. It's a long-term vision that LSS is following, and they carefully design every set. And of course, some people will be mad about another Reinar reprint or whatever. But
Yeah.
come on, this set looks
I
amazing.
think a lot
But
of
the
the
amazing,
collectors are very used to this kind of like Magic release cycle, right? Where a new standard set releases, and then if it's like once it rotates out, the interest for it is gone. So kind of it needs to have an impact in these 2 years that it's legal to play in standard or something.
yeah,
But Flesh and Blood is an eternal game, right? So this is not an issue at all. There could be cards that get released today that won't see any play until 3-4 years from now, and then all of a sudden they are incredible cards, right? Like Wounded
exactly, yeah.
Bull has been in Flesh and Blood for forever, and
Yep.
it didn't really see any play until Michael Hamilton won the world championship with it on Icelander, right? So I'm wondering how many of these cards are going to be around, right? Like cards that people think are not very good, or just don't make the cut, or are just unexplored for whatever reason from older sets that all of a sudden will be incredibly good. And then I think it's going to be a matter of um, like how will these sets be looked at 5 years down the line. Like I could totally see myself like longing to draft Uprising in 2028, just
Yeah,
for a nostalgia
sure.
reason, because it was like such a good draft experience. And yeah, maybe even that alone will be enough to kind of see the value of these products in like the long term. It's still like a young enough game that we don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it's true. Like, but the thing is, for if I see new set releases, I had somehow a shift from, oh, I get excited about this one card for CC, to looking at the entire set and being excited about the limited format, because I've been enjoying Fab Limited so much, and I think that shows like they managed, right. I didn't really have that with Magic the Gathering. I was like, every now and then we drafted okay, and I liked it. It was fun, but this really ups the game for me, and I enjoy limited like at times even more than CC, and I think that that's good. If they manage to do that for me, potentially they manage to do that for other players too, and I think that's a win.
Yeah, I think we've already reached the end of our show for this week. It's always going to be a little bit longer during spoiler season. Next show, we're going to run long again.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, just to add to this, there are these extension slot majestics, right? But they will not affect the limited format. They're mostly in there to. I see them as like bug fixes for CC
Yeah.
in a way, or not bug fixes,
Or
but
just
like
giving new
patches.
abilities, yeah.
Yeah, give people new toys. We won't go into detail here right now. But yeah, let us know what you think about what you've seen about heavy hitters so far. Maybe next time we hear each other, we'll be very sad about the other spoilers, or we'll be even more pumped. Let's see. And yeah, there is a release in 2 weeks. The pre-release is in 2 weeks already, and
Yeah,
I know
sign
that
up for
I'm planning
pre-release
to
if you
play.
haven't already. I have a feeling that these pre-releases are going to be very full.
Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, for me, the set looks awesome, even though I'm not a brute player, I'm not a warrior player, and I'm not a guardian player. But yeah,
But
I
you
still,
always could be.
yes, I always could be. But these are basically the three classes I don't own any cards for. So let's see how that goes after heavy hitters. Yeah, again, let us know what you think. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll hear each other in 2 weeks.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening to this week's show. You can find us on Twitter under the handle at LDFpod, that's LDFPOD, or you can send us an email under questions@ldfpod.com, that is QUESTIONS@ldfpod.com. We're very much looking forward to hearing from all of you and hope you tune in again in 2 weeks when it's time again for the LDF podcast.